Let's talk about the committee last night and a little bit of reaction here. I said this yesterday. I said the teams that win and they're in, right, are Alabama, Michigan, Oklahoma State, right? Georgia's in either way to me. If one of those three loses, Cincinnati gets in. If two of those three loses, Notre Dame gets in. Now, Gary Barta last night, when interviewed, talked about the fact that Brian Kelly left will affect the committee putting Notre Dame into the playoff.
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be no question about that. And I thought this was a bad time by Notre Dame and LSU. Brian Kelly and LSU. If you're LSU and you're Scott Woodward, why don't you just sit there and say, hey, listen, we're going to make this announcement in a week. The only thing I can think of is the early signing period in college football. They're concerned about that. But they couldn't wait until next Sunday?
Yeah. I believe this, and now some people disagree with this. Cincinnati's 4th, Oklahoma State's 5th. I've heard some, especially on Mitch and Paul this morning, say, and Paul Howard's one of them, if Cincinnati wins and Oklahoma State wins, Cincinnati stays 4th. I disagree.
Completely.
Big 12 one-loss champions getting in over Cincinnati.
Especially their one loss was Iowa State on the road in Ames.
It's a very credible loss. They led most of the game. I had them +7. They lost by 4. They led most of the game.
Absolutely. I think Oklahoma State gets in. If everybody wins out, that's the favorite of the four that we're talking about, Michigan, Iowa, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Cincinnati, SMU, and Georgia, Alabama. You said Mitch believes that Alabama would get in with a close loss.
Mitch believes if Alabama stays within one score, they're in over Cincinnati.
No, here's why it's not going to happen. Do we want to see a rematch of Georgia-Alabama? Because it's going to have to be 1-4. What are you going to do? Have Alabama catapult Oklahoma State with one loss who's a conference champion and Michigan who's a conference champion with one loss?
I might have agreed with him had they not played so poorly against Auburn.
Not only that, the other thing is go back to the Mississippi State game. The Arkansas game. That was another game in which they were fortunate to win that game. They won by 7. Now, they were in command of that football game. All I'm saying is you're not going to have a rematch in the next game afterwards.
Alabama will have their signature victory being Ole Miss at home, right? So they will have beaten number 8 at home. Cincinnati beat number 5 on the road and has no losses. I can't make the argument. I just can't get there. But I definitely believe, and I believe this, Oklahoma's resume as a Big 12 champion with one loss, having beat Oklahoma and having beat Baylor twice, right? Ostensibly 3 top 10 schools, they deserve to get in over Cincinnati.
Well, I tend to agree with you. And to me, when I look at it, I think Oklahoma State wins, they're in. There are 3 programs right now I think that completely control their fate, which is Oklahoma State, Michigan, and Georgia. Those 3 win, they're in. And if Alabama wins, they're in. Cincinnati has to rely on getting one of these teams to lose. That's the bottom line.
Let's start with the Big 12 championship game in Jerry World. That's the first game at 9 a.m. Pacific time on Saturday morning. Baylor and Oklahoma State. This line has moved, Amal, the most of any of them.
6.
This game opened 4. It's up to 5.5 or 6 now. You agree with the move, and are you still willing to lay this price, this number of points, with Mike Gundy's team?
I'd have been willing to lay up to 7 here. I think this defense has played so well. I thought that game against Oklahoma, look, Caleb Williams is a different level quarterback in terms of his mobility and what he can do, but I think Oklahoma State, this is the best opportunity they had in the Mike Gundy era. You talk about a program-changing, program-defining opportunity. It's here for this team. I'm not saying Dave Aranda and company wouldn't be a huge win for them, but they're not getting in the playoff in all likelihood.
Is this Dave Aranda's last game at Baylor?
Where's he going to go?
Notre Dame?
I mean, I don't know.
I don't think he goes to Oklahoma, do you?
Listen, if you're OU, you bring him in. I think you're very competitive. I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't really know what Joe Castiglione's going to do. I haven't heard too many names surface. I talked to somebody who's tight with the Oklahoma program. They're not sure who they're looking at. They said Venables is the guy, but he doesn't interview well. It depends. But Joe knows him well. Does he hire him is the question.
Oklahoma State shut Baylor out in the first half in this game, the first time around. Ended up giving up 14, I think. You like the under here, 46.5.
I'm not going to play it. I like the side here. Forget the total. Look, three picks last time around. Oklahoma State's going to dominate, in my opinion.
Your style point's important for Oklahoma State. Win and you're in.
Win and you're in.
100%.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Let's move on then. In terms of chronology, the next big game is Georgia-Alabama at 1 o'clock, 1:10 Pacific, 4 o'clock on the East Coast. This number now has settled in at 6.5 in favor of the Bulldogs. Total dipping. You were on the over when it was 50.5. This thing's down to 49.5. Is your best play here the over?
Yeah, it is. And I'll tell you what, I think a lot of people are reacting to what we saw out of Alabama's offense against Auburn. Now, I still think it's a rivalry game. Give them credit. They played well. I still think Alabama's going to put up points. I think Bryce Young is too good. The other thing is, remember, they had injuries at the running back position, which they're still banged up at. I remember, though, Jamison Williams was out for 2.5 quarters of this game. That makes a huge difference. This is a Biletnikoff finalist. He's got the type of speed that can take the top off of the defense. I think Georgia's going to be able to move the ball in Alabama, and I think Bama will be able to move the ball at times against this Georgia defense.
Bill O'Brien abandoned the run game here and tried to throw the ball. No one has been able to run the ball on Georgia.
I was surprised they kept on going to the running game against Auburn. I didn't understand that. I said, you got an elite quarterback. You've got an elite level guy. Make him just throw the football, and you'll be able to beat these guys. But I think because Williams wasn't there, it had a huge impact on the passing game. I think they'll be just fine. This is the second most important game for Georgia in the last 40 years.
The biggest one was against Dan Marino in the Sugar Bowl for the national championship with Vince Dooley.
I'm going back to the Dooley and the Dogs back then.
Buck Bellew.
I'm talking the national championship against Alabama, which they blew. They had second down
back
26.
To the SEC title game.
No, what I'm saying is that game they should have, which they could have won. They shut out Alabama. Yeah. They shut out Alabama in the first half of the game. But more importantly, if they were to lose this game, I don't know if you can mentally ever recover and think you can ever beat Alabama.
Well, what if they lose the game and win the national title? They don't have to face Alabama again. That's possible.
I'm going to tell you, if they lose this football game,
if Alabama wins, are they the 1 seed?
Yes.
Okay.
They will
be the 1 seed.
Yes.
And Georgia will be the 3 because they're not going to, or 2. They're not going to rematch
Michigan,
them if they
Georgia,
can.
Alabama, Oklahoma State.
It would be Georgia, Michigan in a semifinal, assuming Michigan wins, right?
Yes.
Don't you like Georgia in that matchup?
I would think so, but the way the Wolverines played, what's that?
Be a heck of a game.
It really would. You got to give Michigan credit.
I'd take 7 if I could get it in that spot.
I would agree with you. I tell you, nobody talked enough about the job Cade McNamara did for Michigan in that game. I thought he was unbelievable with this throws.
If they didn't have 3 bad calls go against him in the second half in East Lansing, we'd be talking about Michigan and Georgia as the best 2 teams, I think.
I would agree with you, and I think that gets completely glossed over. Actually, you bring up a good point that I didn't think about just now, which is if Michigan wins in dominating fashion, they could be the 1 seed.
They could be if Georgia loses.
And if Oklahoma State wins, you drop.
Do you agree with the committee that Alabama should still be ahead of Cincinnati in terms of this ranking?
Who's Alabama's lost to A&M?
It's A&M at A&M.
Yeah, they're going to give them credit for the win against Ole Miss. I don't know. I think it's kind of nitpicking. Remember, the schedule with Cincinnati is not that strong.
All right, we got 2 plays out of you in 2 games already here. We've got Oklahoma State laying the points, and we've got over 49.5. All right, let's fast forward to the next biggest game, which will be the nightcap. From Indianapolis, Iowa against Michigan. Look where depending on who you like here, where you find this line. This number's up to 12 in some spots, right? This number varies from 10.5 at DraftKings to 12 in some spots, including Caesars here. Opened 11. Some sides have taken Iowa money, more have taken Michigan. I firmly believe that Michigan money will pour in here later in the week, and this game will go off at least 12.
I tend to agree with you. I think we'll see a lot of Wolverine backers in this spot. I think this Iowa team offensively is just too challenged against this very solid Michigan front. And especially the biggest problem Iowa's going to have is they're so determined to run the football that sometimes if they're not running it effectively, you cannot be in 2nd and 8 and 3rd and 9 against Michigan. You're going to have real problems if they're just sitting back having to throw the ball and Michigan's able to tee off on them with a pass rush.
Do you believe to lay the points here, Amal, or are you just going to watch this game and look for an endgame opportunity?
I just kind of watch the game, yeah.
If you were watching The Edge yesterday here on this network, and one of the finalists for the afternoon, Mitchie, Matt Human said, I think Mike Palm's starting at quarterback for Iowa on Saturday. They've been offensively challenged.
They'd probably have a better chance.
They might, but they'd have to run the wishbone. I was a wishbone quarterback in junior high. Let's take a look at what to me is a very interesting line. And you jumped on this. Utah-Oregon, the rematch. Utah was 3 at Rice-Eccles. This game opened the same on the neutral site here in Las Vegas. It's down to 2.5. Shouldn't Oregon actually be favored in this game?
I think it should be a pick 'em. I love the Ducks here. I think they're going to win this football game, revenge spot. You get embarrassed like this, it costs you an opportunity at the playoff. As long as Anthony Brown doesn't go full Anthony Brown, Oregon's got too many athletes. I like this. Got a better surface here. You're going to be playing at Allegiant indoor track. I like the Ducks here at the plus 115.
I agree with you. Any thought on the total? 60 down to 59.5.
60 down to 59. No opinion on this one.
Okay, and then let's touch on the ACC game. This doesn't have any playoff implications, but could be a shootout in Carolina. Wake Forest against Pitt, one of your favorite quarterbacks, Kelly Pickett. Pitt lane 3, 72.5.
Terrific matchup of quarterbacks. I like Hartman. I like Kenny Pickett a lot. They're both outstanding. I'm going to give the edge to Pittsburgh because they have a better defense. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I'm going to tell you right now, I think Pitt gets into the 40s here. I like the over 72.5 here.
I would agree with you as well. All right, when we come back, we're going to take a look at teasers in the NFL this weekend.